This episode of ChatGPD was made possible by the hard work and creativity of our production team. A huge thank you to Emily Young, Chris Sang, and Alakia Chandran for their expert production, editing, and behind-the-scenes magic that brings each conversation to life. We also want to thank Sarah Topa and the IMS for their support in helping us share ideas, stories, and resources that empower our grad students at every stage of their journey.
So welcome to another episode of ChatGPD, our podcast on careers in biomedical science. I'm Pamela Plant. I'm the Director of Graduate Professional Development here at the IMS, and I am with Jabir Mohamed, who is a neuroscientist, IMS graduate, turned founder of a company called Nowen, and we will be talking to him today about his journey to where he is today. Welcome, Jabir.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I know I'm so excited to talk to you because your career trajectory is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I would love to just unpack your process because you've had so many different careers in such a short period of time. But let's start with your time at IMS and your journey to where you are today.
Oh man, where should I begin? Like the shift that I made, or like just like whatever?
You want to share. I want you to talk about, some of the things that you did in IMS that maybe you leveraged to get to where you are now.
Yeah. I think I was entering grad school with a lot of confidence and conviction in myself. So when I had graduated from my bachelor's, I had like a year off in between my third and fourth year. And that was transformational for me because I knew I was making certain decisions, but they weren't intentional, they weren't purposeful. And I've always been curious and followed that, but I felt like, I was going all over the place. So I needed some time to step away. And so when I had finished my fourth year, I knew what I wanted to do, which is kind of commit to doing some academic research. I know I enjoyed it previously, and I just had to find the right match. And I went to different supervisors. I remember the story of like NSERC summer research internships because, I wanted to get paid, to be honest. I just didn't want to always do a volunteer. I've been doing that. Yeah. So I was pitching ideas and I was like, I want it to kind of go alongside this. And then the responses that I got was, oh, we're not doing NSERC this summer, or we're not taking students. And I was like, oh man, there goes that idea. And then I just happened to be in my neuropsychopharmacology class with Dr. Burnham, who recently passed away, who ended up being my supervisor. And I had mentioned to him, hey, like, I'm looking to do NSERC for the summer because I want to kind of support myself, but also do something that I'm enjoying. Do you happen to be part of NSERC, or do you have that? And his response was something I'll never forget. And that's when I knew, like, okay, this is someone that I can truly see myself just surrounding myself with. And he said, no, I don't have NSERC, but I'd be happy to pay you, and we can talk about what you want to do. And so that was really the start of my graduate kind of career in many ways, because I knew who my supervisor was. Sometimes, people might have an idea or just say they want to do research and they might get matched, or everyone has their own journey to find their supervisor, but that's who I found. And then just his response kind of showed me that, okay, he's going to give me the space and the autonomy to make this my own. And that's exactly what I did. So IMS, my experience was very unique in many ways of my journey, where I came in to the lab, I did some work that summer, but then I said, hey, I kind of don't want to do any of these projects. I want to do something different. He's like, okay, take some time to think about it, see what you come up with. Just recognize that we have a certain set of tools. And as long as you can answer the questions with the tools that we have, we'd be happy to kind of invest. And I was like, okay, took some time. And I remember sending him an email like 2 a.m. in the morning. I was like, I found it. And then he's like, okay, let's do it. And so I started with IMS 2015, again, coming in with lots of conviction, lots of confidence, and even just tremendous amount of belief from my supervisor. And I rocked it. I did not look back. I did not slow down. I remember even just participating in scientific day, like, I don't know if it was May or something, which was unusual because people are like, are you doing a PhD? What is this? I was like, no, I just got to work right away because everything was clear. Everything was clear from the beginning. There was no confusion, right from the start, day one. And so that like really is a reflection of what my graduate school experience was. At no point until the end, and we'll get there, is I didn't have any confusion. I didn't have any doubt. I didn't have any uncertainty. I just kept going. And along the way, I knew there's other goals that I had. I remember I had a sticky note next to my bed of the things that I wanted to do. And one of them ended up becoming Raw Talk podcast, but that's not, what I had in mind or envisioned. It was just leave something at the university. Because prior to that, I had an experience that was really transformational where with my brother, I kind of started a soccer team and we built so much community, had a lot of great experiences together. And I just wanted to do that and have that part of my life again after that kind of phase ended. And so, yeah, I felt like I was very prolific, but I was also right within. I was good. I had great relationships. I made amazing friends. And yeah, that sustained, that kind of energy was not didn't go unwavered for literally 2 years consecutively. I surprised myself, like, how did I keep going? But yeah, that's the experience, what grad school was like for me until it looked different.
So Jabir, why did you stop at the MSc? Why didn't you continue flowing that work into a PhD?
So at the time, I had every intention to continue. In fact, I was actually excited about the prospect of doing a PhD, whether I was going to continue with Mac or I was going to kind of go on to another lab that was kind of doing that same work. But I was in France at the time. I was doing international research. Like I was lucky enough to kind of get the MyTax Global Research Award. And I do remember the conversation that I was having with graduate supervisors here. Not my Mac supported it. He's like, go ahead and do it. Remember when I presented him the idea? It's like, yeah, I'm going to be away 6 months. Are you okay with that? I'll make sure I get everything done beforehand, but hopefully by the time I can time it where I'm writing my thesis. He's like, yeah, if you can make it happen, make it happen. But I do remember talking to Dr. Osborne, Lucy, Dr. Horner, Richard, and Dr. Basu. And they were all like, I don't know if you should do it, because of like the data. And they were obviously worried that my master's was going to get extended. But I was like, no, I feel this is right. This is one of the things that was actually on my sticky note. I wanted international research experience. And they're like, okay, go ahead and do it. So I did it. So I was in France at the time. I just wanted to paint that kind of tell that story. But what happened in France was just not what I expected. So first thing, I felt like Emily in Paris. Have you guys seen that show on Netflix? And it's not because I couldn't speak or communicate in French. It was because like I came with energy and intensity that just did not match the disposition of the French and their natural rhythm. So of course it was like hard for me to kind of connect and integrate. And I wasn't thinking, I was like, of course I should have adapted to their rhythm versus getting them to adapt to mine. So at times, like I felt lonely there, right? So I just kind of buried myself in the research and the work. And the experiments I was doing, I was just very unsatisfied by the results, right? So there was that. And then I was having writer's block because I was supposed to be writing at that time, but I just couldn't get to writing, as effectively as I wanted to. And partly the main reason was because, the hypothesis that I believed so strongly, that I gave everything to, I started kind of noticing some flaws in it. It was like incomplete. And so I remember even like messaging scientists who had opposing views. It's like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm seeing. What do you think? And they kind of validated that too. And I was like, damn, like all this time I spent on this hypothesis that I really believed in, and I'm now starting to notice some things. I don't even know if I want to write this anymore. So like that was all happening at the time. So a confluence of things that a lot of my academic research related experiences weren't positive, right? So a lot of the positive experiences that I was having came outside of that, whether it was being in Europe and getting to see my brother and traveling in different parts of Europe. I was still involved with Raw Talk, co-producing it, co-leading it. So that was the first time where I was like, there's a lot of like not so positive things happening right now with my academic research career. It just made me kind of reflect. I'm gonna about to make a big decision, commit to a PhD. I'm in this state right now. Is this a good time for me to be making that decision? I remember talking to my supervisor about that, and he's like, no, take the time you need. Again, he was incredible. And then I was like, okay, let me come back to Toronto and we'll see how I feel then. I came back to Toronto, it was kind of the same. I was still feeling like I just wasn't connecting to this anymore. And the positive experiences that I was kind of getting were still coming outside of academic research. So I was seeking any kind of distraction to kind of stop me from writing, right? Or distract me from writing. And one of those distractions ended up being consulting. So there's the undergraduate, UCG, University Consulting Group. It's crazy because even when I was in France, before I started feeling these things, I sent an email to like my best friend, two of like my closest friends at the time, and like one person that I admired who ran Max Lab, saying like, I'm ready to do this PhD. And like months later, I'm like, I don't know. And so I was doing this consulting thing and it was interesting. It's like, I'm helping solve a pretty cool problem, interesting problem with someone that I think is amazing and doing amazing things. It was the Entrepreneurship Hatchery. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, the incubator here. And I don't know, I just invested in it. I cared. And like people noticed, the alumni who were in industry noticed. And so they started talking to me about like, hey, what are you doing after grad school? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's like, well, you should think about this, consider this. I'm like, I guess, I can, sure. And so I did. And I don't know, like I actually really thought about like, why did I make this change? I think it was just because like, I knew it felt like with a PhD, I was going to start over again because I didn't want to study this hypothesis and test it. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to start over again, I might as well do something else. I feel like I'm starting over anyway. So I might build on this momentum.
Consulting?
Yeah. So obviously everyone's dream is like, let's get into these big firms, right? Get paid, all that kind of stuff. And as I was talking to these folks, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. This is like, I'm starting to doubt myself. Remember, I didn't go to grad school doubting myself at all, but this was a big transition. And I had no kind of, aside from these conversations that I was having, I didn't really have like evidence that like I can be in these rooms and excel. So I just gave myself a bit more grace and I said, okay, maybe if I get there, I get there, but let me just get the experiences, So I used to do some undergraduate kind of teaching and program development for the summers for Division of Teaching Labs. They had their Mid-YSP youth summer program. And so I think one thing that I'm good at is just like pitching myself and pitching an idea. So I went to the supervisor, the guy who runs it, Arthur, and I was like, hey, like these modules have been the same since I started like 7-8 years ago. What if we introduce something, like, have you thought about introducing something else? Like, if you have, like, I can help kind of co-design it, consult on it, and start from like the perspective of like, what do you think new students need? What's the feedback that we're getting? And do like a student-centered kind of approach to developing this new module. He's like, I'm down, let's do it. We like each other, we get along well, we work really well together. So that was like me pitching consulting and a way to just get experience without like waiting on someone else to give me an opportunity. And that was fun. I was like, okay, I like this. This is really cool. I go from start to finish, seeing something that got created and now it's still in use. I was just ran into Arthur like a couple months ago. He's like, oh, look, it's still here. I was like, that's awesome, But then I was like, okay, I think I also need to step away from the academic environment, like really test myself. Let's see if I can do something in the corporate environment. And that's when I started thinking about, okay, let me see if I can, make something happen there. And that was pretty challenging. And I can tell you like how I made that first break in.
Was it, again, your network, or is it an opportunity that just presented itself organically, or what happened for you?
No, honestly, I don't think I should have got that opportunity because I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but like certain companies have co-op programs, right? So it's open to people obviously in school.
In co-op programs.
Either in co-op programs or in like advanced degrees that have like the autonomy or ability to kind of take some time off or work and do their studies or whatever part-time. So I didn't fit that criteria, but I said, I'm going to apply anyways, right? And if they don't pay attention, they don't pay attention. Because I technically am a graduate. So, or I just recently graduated, so it's still fresh. So it was Manulife, and I applied, and they asked me about it, and I was like, yeah, this is where I'm at. It's like, okay, that's fine. We can still kind of proceed through it. And I remember this was like my first, actually, no, it wasn't my first corporate interview, because I had two others at different companies. Thought I got them, I didn't get them. So I remember the one question that really stood out. He's looking at my resume, and he's like, your background, like neuroscience, like what are you doing? What are you doing applying to this role? Because this was Manulife, the insurance company, and the team specifically was business effectiveness and organizational development. So it's like an arm within HR. And at that time, I was listening to a lot of Adam Grant podcasts. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Adam Grant and his work. He's an organizational psychologist. And I was like, I like how this guy thinks, you know, big picture guy, knows how to communicate. What he's saying makes sense to me. So I was already familiar with the space a little bit. And that's why I applied, right? I was like, oh, like I've been reading and, you know, listening about this stuff. So I can speak the language a little bit. And so I remember I said, well, you know, I studied the brain and dysfunction, you know, for several years. So I understand what the brain looks like when it's normal and when it's not. And then try to introduce interventions to get it back to a state where it feels and looks healthy, you know, whatever healthy might look like for that person. And I see a lot of this, I see a lot of that in what you guys do. You know what an effective organization looks like, and you know what an ineffective organization.
Yeah.
And you guys have these different interventions, performance management, talent development, etc. And you're introducing this, you're studying this, so then you hope to kind of have a really effective organization. And I remember he looked at me, he's like, yeah, that's it. I was like, okay, it makes sense. And so at that point, I knew I was gonna get it. So it worked out, and like,
What did you take away from that experience?
That experience,
Yeah.
honestly, the confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence. Because it was still very much entry level, and like, for a co-op, they have very low expectations. So they might just give you like certain projects here or there, assist in that. And I think they were kind of surprised how seasoned I was, like as just someone
to take on
more. Someone who just like to get work done and have high standards. So like there's a certain level of professionalism that I had, and I think that came from building Raw Talk, you know, taking my graduate studies very seriously. I just took myself seriously, you know, in what I did.
Yeah, and fully applied yourself in everything that you did.
Yeah, exactly. So they would have consultants from Gallup or whatever, and I wasn't afraid to ask them questions like, what do you mean by that? And I remember like they would look at me, he's like, why is this guy asking these questions? Like, why are we asking these questions? But in any case, like it just gave me a lot of confidence, because one of the questions was like, I've had some good times in academia and like things that like worked out well. Could that happen in corporate? And I got the answer to that question. So that's what it gave me. It gave me confidence that I could do this and whatever I do next. And now it's also like, oh, I'm not just someone applying to a job who doesn't have corporate experience from academia. So I had at least something. And that actually helped me get my next role at TD.
And what are you doing at TD?
I got into customer strategy. Again, it was different, right? And it was like, what stood out was like my cover letter. I remember I was looking at it before coming here, and I was like, hey, I don't have a decade of experience in customer strategy. I don't have a certificate in business analysis, but I have the skill set that I feel like can just translate, and I've worked really hard to develop. And so I spoke to those skills, you know, that I could offer, that I know based on the job description are a good fit. And then I gave very concrete examples that demonstrate me thinking strategically, thinking from a customer point of view, because it was like customer strategy and experience design. So I talked about Raw Talk. You know, I talked about like, and you know this, how much time goes into kind of creating a guest experience, how much time it takes to kind of create a great episode. You know, you have to be very thoughtful and intentional, thinking about your listeners, thinking about your guests. I talked about like the live shows that we would do. I talked about the consulting work that I did with like the hatchery and then also the division of teaching labs. And I was just like, listen, I know I can do this. I've already done it. I just have an unusual background, but I'll be good if you take a bet. And they took a bet. And then the guy who hired me, I was his first external hire, and he's the one who I'm working with now. So it's like, it was great. Yeah, that's how I got in.
I love that you've trusted yourself, your intuition, and just really maximized your transferable skills, because you are a shining example of what we try to teach in professional development, which is like the skills that you develop are absolutely transferable to many different environments, corporate, academic, medicine. These are the fundamental skills. And if you are able to recognize that value proposition and articulate it in a concise way that makes sense to that employer, this is what gets you the job.
No, for sure. One of the biggest things that has kind of helped me with just having this kind of mindset and just belief in myself is like the people that I've surrounded myself with, and then the leaders that I was fortunate to have. Because like I've been in teams in corporate where I felt that I had to dim myself, that I couldn't actually extend or stretch myself. I had to work within a box or a container. And I haven't had that prior to that, right? Like I was lucky enough to have really, people that just made me feel like I could do it if I apply myself, So I recognize that, that as being a privilege for me. Because some people, even when I share these cover letters with those who are looking to break in to UX research or something else, I look at that, I'm like, wow, like I have parts of that still in me, but there's a lot more doubt in me than there was back in the day. And it's because of like the environments that I found myself in later on. But yeah, at that time I was like really high on just confidence.
Yeah. So can you tell us a lot about what you do on a daily basis and how what you like about your role, what you don't like about your role, and maybe segue into your company?
Yeah, of course. So after customer strategy, that's when I got introduced to user experience research. And so that ended up being like the thing that was like a good fit for a long term.
And
so I
can
did
you
that.
explain that to
Yeah,
our
what
listeners?
user experience
Because
research
I think
is?
all you have to say is Apple.
Yeah.
They're all
Yeah.
about user experience.
I think
But-
if you think about any product that you're using, or that you're even thinking about, a lot of thought gets into building it. Kind of really defining what the problem is that you're trying to solve, who it's for, and what a different life looks like with it in your hands or in your life, right? So there's a lot of people involved in making that a reality. Obviously, people know engineers and developers, designers, product managers, but there's also researchers involved, right? And the role of the researcher is that everybody has this idea of what, a future could look like, a future that they want to see, like a community that they want to serve and how they want to serve them. And sometimes they might have really great instincts. They might have lots of lived experiences, but at some point, that initial idea that they have changes or evolves, or the initial people that they were serving change or evolve. And so they lose that kind of connection, that instinct, not their taste, but just like that instinct of knowing who there is that they're serving,
yeah.
right?
It's kind of like that core purpose of a company, the why.
Exactly.
The why comes down to the user. And it's not really different in academia. The why is my students. What do they need? What do they want to see? So always everything that's designed is around them.
Yeah.
So
as a user researcher, someone might come to me, whether it's like the CEO, the product manager, or anyone who is responsible for building something or shipping it or putting it out there. And there can be in different stages. They can be like, hey, I don't know what to build. I just need to know what problems are out there that are worth solving. It could also be like, hey, I have this idea. I just want to make sure that it's actually a good idea and I can shape around it to make it a great idea. Or I know this is a great idea. I've built this thing and I just want to know if it actually delivers on that promise, actually is usable. So people come to people like us, like as a UX researcher, to say, I need confidence in each of these things. can you help me? Here are the questions that I have that I need answers to kind of point me in that direction. So as a UX researcher, you're pointing people in the direction with more confidence. It sounds pretty abstract, but like you do that through your research. It could be qualitative research or quantitative. And this was also new for me, right? I mean, I kind of built some experiences leading up to it, but I was an experimental researcher. I didn't do qualitative research in grad school. The only qualitative research experience that I had was podcasting, interviews, and kind of distilling that. But that's what a UX researcher does. And then they produce these reports, talk to people, generate insights, produce these reports, and then kind of share their point of view and potentially recommendations and make that like a workshop to kind of determine what do we do next? What do we do moving forward? So that's the role. And I was doing that for a while. I know you asked me like,
Now,
what am I up to
and
now?
you're from what I understand, you're still doing that, but then you've also spun off Nowen.
Yeah.
And can you touch base with us on Nowen and share what your vision is for that company? Because founding a company at your age is a really bold move. It's very impressive.
Yeah, no. So I will say that I'm actually not doing UX research right now. I'm still very much connected to it through like a project that I'm working on that's a part of Nowen. But like what I do for work is something completely different. Like my mindset around like what I do in corporate and what I do for myself has like completely changed, because for me to be able to invest and put the energy towards Nowen and what I'm trying to, like who I want to be, like I need the capacity and energy to do that. And what I was doing as a UX researcher, as much as like I enjoyed it in many ways, it's quite demanding. And I couldn't do both. So I had to make the decision of like, okay, I'm going to do something that I can still, I'll be honest here, I can still pay my mortgage. I can still have like my current lifestyle, but it gives me back the energy and the capacity. So that's what I'm doing for work right now. And that's just the truth. But for Nowen really just represents, and I was talking to you about this earlier, is just an expression of myself, an expression of like, I want to put things out there in the world that are bigger than me, and that I really believe in, and I think that could make a difference. And the reason I got to the place like, okay, it is like, so the tagline I was telling you about is like, it's later or never. Later is never, sorry. It's because like it was just gnawing me all these years. Like I've always wanted to do something else, right? I always wanted to have another big thing. Like after leaving Raw Talk, I was like, so what's the next adventure? What's the next big thing that's bigger than me? And I didn't, like, I would have all these ideas, but I was like, I just don't have the energy or the capacity. I'm starting a corporate career. I'm trying to build a track record. I'm making a lot of shifts. I need to be present and engaged for this, and I need to grow into this. And so I finally got to the place where I'm like, okay, now is the time. So Nowen just really represents like, I have these ideas. I think some of them that I've validated with friends and people that I know I'm trying to serve. And let me just try to build it. Like, I don't have tech, I'm not an engineer or developer, so I'm not technically the person who's going to end up building the entire thing, but I can get it to a place where it can get built. So that's like just the idea of what Nowen is. And the project that I'm really invested and energized in is called Inform. So Inform is like the first kind of big thing that I'm working on. So Nowen is like a studio that encapsulates all the things that I want to kind of build, because I know myself, and like as you guys can probably see, like I'm gonna make moves. I'm gonna kind of make transitions. I'm gonna grow, and so I wanted a safe like space where I can capture all of that. So Nowen is that. So Inform is the first thing that I'm working on, and I can talk about that a bit more if you'd like.
I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, so Inform, I'll start with the name. It's inspired by like I used to play soccer competitively when I was younger, and I don't know if you guys watch soccer, if your listeners watch soccer, but like one thing, yes. So one thing commentators often say, or even just pundits, like when they're describing a player, is like when they're playing at their potential or their level of their ability, is like, oh, that player is in form. And in form might look different to a different player. A striker in form looks different to a defender in form. And the way I interpret what inform means is like, they're doing what they're hired to do, and they're doing it extremely, extremely well. Okay, so that's like the one meaning of Inform to me, and I resonate with that. Inform is a product that I'm building for UX researchers. Okay, and so the double meaning for Inform now is, as a UX researcher, we're hired to inform better decision making. That's what we do best. We do a lot of things to get us to a place to say, here's the point of view, here's what you need to know, and here's, your decisions.
It's
And
like competitive intelligence.
it is, but that's only one type of research. You might do brand new research, exploratory, like you don't really know what the problem is, and no one's probably solving that problem right now. So there's competitive intelligence, which can be a little bit more like market research, right? But there's different type of like research that a UX researcher could do. So Inform is for UX researchers, and the problem that it's trying to solve is, so there's a kind of pretty structured project lifecycle, right? You scope your study, you understand like what is the thing that we're trying to understand, then you translate that into a study design. So you design your study, you come up with the questions.
Sounds very
right?
scientific to
right?
me.
And then you collect your data, you analyze your data, so on. Okay. Where Inform comes in is like there's a step before you analyze there's a step between collecting your data and analyzing your data. You call it data preparation, call it data wrangling. I know that's a term that's common for quant research. But essentially, it's like you go from a messy transcript to something that you can actually analyze, right? And when you have a lot of messy transcripts and you move them into different virtual whiteboards, everyone has like, or spreadsheets, we have like a certain method and way of doing it. That takes up a lot of time. But it's necessary to get to a place where like I can actually analyze this data. And that preparation can look like cleaning. It can look like, removing extraneous stuff, just seeing what the participant response is, seeing what the question is, and seeing it across all different participants.
So just paring it down to the meat.
Yeah, and just like what I'm analyzing, right?
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time. And essentially with Inform, what I'm trying to do is cut that out. And I think with the technology that exists, especially within AI, I want to remove that, because what ends up happening is that because of this data preparation, which takes a lot of time, right? With every transcript, that might be an hour-long conversation. It might take about an hour and a half to just prepare the data for analysis.
Yeah,
and
and
if you can
you're doing
imagine,
large scale,
it's like you're spending an entire week just preparing your data. It's very kind of painstaking. And going from that step to the step that requires the most kind of critical thinking, where you're analyzing, synthesizing, distilling, it's hard to kind of just make that context switch, right? So what ends up happening is like we dread analysis, we procrastinate on it. And sometimes because we are working in corporate, we're dealing with timelines and deliverables, right? So we have to end up rushing it. And so with Inform, I'm just trying to flip that equation. I want to give the researchers back the time so they can get to analysis sooner and do that sooner, what they're hired to do, informed decision making, and take that time off them of like the data preparation. So that's what Inform is.
So the researchers can be informed for what they do.
Exactly. So they can be informed. It's like, wow, like that's a really good report. Yeah. Because I got to spend a little bit more time on it, and I wasn't spending that time on, data preparation, which is critical, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's an opportunity to use the technology that exists. And so that's what I'm building right now.
So you're building the technology, but also the group of researchers around kind of that consultation piece with your clients.
Yeah. So it's going to be a software product. It's not an agency. It's not a firm. I'm using it's going to be powered by AI, and like it has to, where the stage that I'm in right now is like I'm fine tuning the models, because I can't use the generic ones, right? Because it's a very specialized task. So I'm fine tuning the models, but the vision is like, this is actually a product people buy the same way they might buy. There's a tool, like for instance, called user interviews, right? And what that is, the problem that solves is like you can find quality participants fast, because before user interviews, if you guys have done qualitative research before, like you're putting posters on bulletins, you're going to different communities and asking people, hey, like all these questions to screen them. And that takes up a lot of time. And all you're thinking is like, man, I just want to collect the data already, So user interviews allows you to collect the data sooner, because they have this repository of like, the right participants based on your screening criteria. And with Inform, I just want them to analyze the data sooner, right? Because I've helped them with like the data preparation piece. So that's like the analogy. So it's meant to be a software and to sell it to like research teams that they can use.
It sounds like a really nice summation of kind of all the experience you gathered along the way, the qualitative research, the corporate mindset of execution and putting. So I think it's like a phenomenal kind of culmination of all the skills that you've developed through your experience. And I'd just love for you to comment on, I often talk to grad students, and I hate this saying, but it is very much about luck and timing, like how you progress in different careers. And with you, it sounds very much that, but you've created your luck. You've, really listened to yourself, put yourself in experiences and opportunities that are going to help you grow and help you get to the next stage. So could you just comment for grad students that are, where you were 5-10 years ago, and what can they do now in grad school that really develops that? I know you say Raw Talks was a big thing for you. Your extracurricular engagement was really important for you. What would you advise grad students to do and kind of get involved with now while they're in grad school? Because it's very different when they leave grad school and get out in the real world. What are some of those experiences now that you think were pivotal for developing and shaping you into who you were? And what advice would you give grad students?
My mind went many different places as you were asking that question, but I think probably the best place to start, and the thing that actually how I was navigating and kind of going through grad school is I was mainly prioritizing like skill acquisition. I thought to myself, okay, what are like meta skills that no matter what I do, they're going to be extremely valuable? What could those be? One of them was communication. It might look and sound like I'm good at communicating, but before Raw Talk, before IMS Magazine, I was scared. Like I did not have the confidence at all, but I knew if I get over that, if I do the work, and I study the experts, I apply it, I find my own voice, then I'm going to get better at communicating and I find the right experiences. So every magazine article that I was writing was really hard for me. Every podcast episode that I was hosting or co-hosting was very hard for me. But I saw all those moments, I didn't take those moments for granted. They were like moments of truth. It's like, I just got to do the preparation. And if I feel like I'm not going to regret it, I know I won't regret doing it because I'm just going to get more and more confident. And one thing I'll say, like, it doesn't mean that communicating is any easier for me. I got nervous coming here, but I'm faster at arriving at my thoughts. I'm faster at knowing what I want to communicate. And because the reason I'm faster is because I did the work.
You did that groundwork.
I did the work.
This is the perfect segue into AI, chat, all those lovely algorithms that are so tempting for students to use to supplant their communication.
Yeah.
And you having gone through that organic process of iteration and thinking about what you're going to say, and that's so important to developing who you are now. How do you think AI is going to influence that? Because I always say to the students, you rely on that, you're going to just sound like everyone else. You're never going to find your inner voice and what you want to say.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of like reconcile the AI, this is a new age, and the recognition that you having done that organically and done the hard work yourself is really the tool that got you to where you are now?
Yeah. No, it's, I couldn't imagine trying to do that now because like,
it's too easy.
It's so easy. But even now, like working and trying to do what I'm doing right now, I leverage AI often. Like I love AI. I found like the use case for it for me, and it definitely is not critical thinking.
Yeah.
The use case for me is almost like, just getting clearer in my thinking. That's what it's there for. So when I'm having a conversation with it, when I'm proposing like a thought, a perspective, and I really give it like, this is where I'm stuck. I want to know what you think, you know? And it says whatever it says. And I look at it, I'm like, nah, I don't think so. You know? So it's like for me, and like for anyone who's like wondering, like, I got to build these meta skills, but now I have all these ways to just use AI to write this for me, or use this to build this presentation for me, or this tool to kind of illustrate this for me. Sure, yeah, you can do that. But when you're in a room with someone who's looking for someone who's skilled, and they need it quickly and they need it right in front of them, you're going to really struggle. You're going to find yourself in a room like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's like one thing to kind of remind yourself about. Like, you're not going to always be able to do things virtually and with AI, you know, and then it's not going to, so you have to like use AI as an assistant, but don't use it to replace you and your thinking, especially the way you think.
Yeah, you use it as a tool, but don't use it to, think about the implications of its use on your own growth.
Yeah.
Don't strip yourself of opportunity to grow by just the ease of deferring to the AI as the tool that's going to get it done faster.
Yeah. No, you, well said. Well said.
Well, I am so sad that we are wrapping up our time, because I literally could talk to you for a few hours.
Likewise.
Because there's just such, you're an incredibly impressive young man. And I think you really embody, what we try to teach in the professional development program. So thank you for so beautifully articulating that through your journey. You're constantly using your transferable skills in every situation you're in. I really could talk to you forever.
Appreciate it.
I would like to do what we normally do with all of our guests at the end of our time together. I just get you to, in 1 minute, kind of pitch a career in what it is that you have chosen to do. Why should students care about what you have chosen to do? And if you could do a pitch, you're an extraordinary communicator.
Yeah. Oh my God.
In 1 minute, I would like you to, just pitch your career.
Okay, so if you're someone who has a relentless desire to learn, an endless amount of curiosity, and is willing to think big picture, but likes to do the hard, be in the trenches at the same time, this is a career for you. If you are someone who likes to think big scale, like, and do work beyond yourself, like it's definitely a career for you. It's, oh man, like I'm just kind of speaking, like honestly, like telling myself, why am I doing this, in many ways. But I think to be a founder means that for you, it's important to be part and involved in the creation of something bigger than yourself, and not be far removed from that. For instance, as a UX researcher, I never made anything other than my report. I informed how other people make things because of the insights that I generated. That was not fulfilling for me. The mechanism and how I make the foundation that I have is like through research and understanding people, understanding problems really well, and being curious about that. But ultimately, I want to make something. I want to be the one who makes something. And if you want to be the one who makes something that is in someone else's living room, is in someone's, desktop, is in someone's phone, is in someone's closet, then be a founder.
Oh, Jabir Mohamed, you are one fascinating person, and I have truly enjoyed speaking to you. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me. This was amazing. This is kind of like the first conversations that I'm having and like sharing publicly about where I'm at, like outside of like my inner friends.
Wow.
So it's a big moment for me. So thank you for...
We're honored to be here for you.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.